We are back at the scene of two arson investigations at restaurants in Scarborough, and the search continues for suspects and the motive.
Well, new research finds Ontario has more family doctors, but many are choosing not to work in primary care. This after workers held a rally to sound the alarm over the province's healthcare crisis.
And new details have been released about a proposed Hovercraft service expected to travel from Toronto to Niagara region in just 30 minutes.
And still no deal between Canada Post and its union, but the two sides are expected to return to the bargaining table. We're going to have the latest.
You watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Saab.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Live at 5. The search continues for suspects wanted in two arson investigations in restaurants in Scarborough tonight. And police believe the fires are connected.
CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan continues our live coverage with the latest from the scene. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari and Lena, two things. The restaurants were both Indian restaurants, and they were both in close proximity to one another in the Lawrence and Kennedy area. So police believe that both arsons were connected, and the only connections are what I just mentioned. We don't have any other information as to what may be the connection between these two restaurants other than again, Indian restaurants and their locations. But we do know that both restaurants were set on fire intentionally within 24 hours of one another. The first being this location where we are at right now, Indian restaurant, on a Friday morning, early in the morning. 3 masked suspects entered that location. They doused the inside with the flammable liquid, and then they set it on fire, causing people inside the restaurant to flee for their safety. And thankfully, none were physically injured. And then less than 24 hours later, just north of where we are right now, a second Indian restaurant was set on fire. This one, Toronto Fire tell us, happened at 3:30 in the morning. We did have video surveillance that we obtained on Saturday from that location, which showed 2 suspects at that location entering that restaurant at 3:20 in the morning. They smashed the front window of that restaurant. They went inside for about 20 seconds, came out with a canister. They doused it with a flammable liquid. We're showing that video right now. And then they fled in a silver-colored Honda CRV that police are now actively looking for. So we do know that both are intentionally set. We do know that the connection between the commonalities between the two are that the fact that they're both Indian restaurants. And we do not know if the 3 suspects at Friday's incident are the same 2 suspects that you're looking at right now on Saturday's incident, but nonetheless, the police are actively investigating both occurrences. Now, I did learn from some of the people in the second location, the one just north of where we are right now that happened on Saturday. That restaurant opened just 2 weeks ago. It was under construction for quite some time, almost a year, and then 2 weeks ago it opened up, and now it is burned to the ground, as you can see from the shots that we're showing right now. So very concerning for people in the area here, and police are actively trying to locate these suspects and determine a motive for these 2 arsons. Send it back to you guys.
All right, Steve Ryan reporting live from one of the fire scenes tonight as these investigations continue. Thank you, Steve. In London, police have announced the largest fentanyl bust in that service's history.
Late last month, officers carried out search warrants at 6 residences in London, North York, and Hamilton. They seized nearly 5 kilos of fentanyl, valued at more than $2.7 million. They also seized nearly 5 kilos of crystal meth and 474 grams of cocaine. 4 firearms were recovered, including a semi-automatic pistol. Officers also confiscated ammunition, a silencer, and more than $200,000 in cash. 6 vehicles were seized as part of the investigation as well.
And 2 Toronto men, 44-year-old Mark Barreras and 23-year-old Sajid Bin Saleh, as well as 2 men from London, have been arrested. Each suspect is facing dozens of charges, including drug trafficking and gun possession.
Well, a teenage boy is facing charges in a violent home invasion in Hamilton Mountain, which led to an infant being bear sprayed.
Officers were called to a home for a large fight around 2 o'clock this morning at Upper Paradise and Stone Church Roads. Police say the accused entered the home with another suspect, discharged bear spray, and then pulled out a knife. A 9-month-old baby was impacted by the spray. The 15-year-old boy was eventually forced outside and held until officers could make an arrest. He's facing 21 charges, including 4 counts of assault with a weapon and 7 counts of failing to comply with a youth sentence. Police are still working to identify that second suspect.
Another significant step for the construction of the Ontario line.
Excavation work began today on Queen Station at Yonge and Queen, which will eventually connect with Line 1 of the subway. Crews are going to remove more than 100,000 cubic meters of dirt and rock, and the station platform will be built 40 meters below street level, directly beneath the existing subway station. It'll be the busiest stop on the Ontario line, serving over 15,000 riders during peak hours.
The company behind a proposal for Hovercraft service between Toronto and Niagara region is touting the benefits that it could provide, like alleviating traffic congestion on the QEW.
Our Sija Liu joins us live with the details and the promise. Sija.
Lena Bakari, have you ever wished you could just travel across Lake Ontario instead of dealing with the traffic and driving around on the QEW? Well, that idea is one step closer to reality. Right now, with current traffic, it takes around 2.5 hours to drive to Niagara region, but a proposed hovercraft service says they can get you there in 30 minutes. This is a company called Hoverlink Ontario, and we're getting new details of how this proposed hovercraft service would work. It's just signed a 30-year deal with Ports Ontario to build a dock right here at Billy Bishop Airport. They're going to build another dock at Port Welland near St. Catharines, and they say this hovercraft service could take you there in 30 minutes. It can run up to 48 trips every day, 365 days a year. So it is going to be a year-round service. They also say that this will boost tourism. It can make going to the Niagara region an easy day trip, but it's also going to help commuters. They say with the amount of trips that they can do, they can take about 8,000 cars off the QEW each day. And they're also going to have shuttle buses that take people from the station in Niagara region to popular tourist destinations. Now, the big question is, how much is the ticket going to be? The company says they're still trying to figure that out, but the price will be comparable to other transit options already in the area. Here's more from the CEO of Hoverlink Ontario on their vision and how folks at the Waterfront BIA are feeling about this project.
Following today, we are going to be manufacturing the craft, and right now we're evaluating where we're going to do that. We're hopeful that we can have an opportunity to do that right here in Ontario, which would be an accelerant for economic development and really accelerate the project. But we're about 2 to 3 years out.
It's very exciting that there could be a very simple way for people to get to Niagara Falls and the Niagara on the Lake region from their visit in Toronto. Instead of taking 2 hours in traffic to get there, they can now just make it like a one-day trip from their hotel, hopefully in downtown Toronto.
And the company says this will also help housing in the area. They said this could be a regional housing expansion. So, Lena Bakari, a lot of promises, a lot of looking towards the future of what this service could be.
All right, CP24, Sija Liu reporting from the waterfront. Thanks a lot, Sija. Well, it's 5:08, 13 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Still to come, the number of family doctors working in Ontario is up, but they may be harder to find because of the type of medicine they're choosing to practice. We're going to take a look at the findings of a new study next. Ontario healthcare workers rallied in Toronto today to highlight what they say is a recruitment and retention crisis in the sector.
Okay, so this demonstration downtown comes as the Ontario Public Service Employees Union is holding contract talks with the Ontario Hospital Association. The union says hospitals across the province are grappling with shortages in hundreds of job classifications. It's calling for solutions to avoid what it says are dangerous levels of understaffing.
What we need to see from the government is actually significant investment into our hospitals. Right now, they are underfunding our hospitals. The amount of money that they are providing in increases doesn't keep up with the cost of inflation. It doesn't keep up with the aging population. It doesn't keep up with the increasing need of healthcare in this province.
Recruitment and retention are key issues facing this sector. These are the workers that are with patients from diagnosis until they're discharged, and they're vital to the day-to-day operations. But they need to be treated with respect. We have a government that has spent $9.2 billion on agency nursing, that has increased hallway medicine by 125%, and has increased all sorts of compensation for private agencies, but will not show these workers that are vital to the running of our hospitals what they need.
And the Office of Ontario's Health Minister is responding to the rally and the concerns we heard from workers today. A statement from his spokesperson says, in part, with our government's record investments to create new nursing programs, expand scopes of practice, stand up new primary care teams, and break down barriers for internationally educated nurses, we know medical professionals want to work and practice in Ontario. Again, that's from the Office of Ontario's Health Minister.
And in addition to more funding, the union also wants the OHA to take steps to end what it's calling increasing reliance on private agencies for staffing.
And staying with healthcare, the number of family doctors working in Ontario is up, but they may be harder to find because of the type of medicine they're choosing to practice.
Let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins for a closer look at the findings of a new study. Phil.
Yeah, the currently, growing up, son of immigrants, they say you want to be a doctor. That's the safe job. That's the job that everyone wants you to be. However, it seems like a lot of people getting into family medicine, but realizing they want a little bit more work-life balance. They want a higher pay. And so what we're understanding from a new report from a family medicine journal, they looked in the last 30 years. They did say, as Lena mentioned, that the number of family doctors has gone up. However, the amount of comprehensive family doctors, these are general medicine doctors, the one that you would typically just go to in your neighborhood when you're a little kid, you get your booster shots and you go until you're a senior citizen. That has actually gone down. According to this report, out of these 6,310 new family doctors over the past 30 years, about 40% are now in focused practices, and they're going to be working in hospitals. They're going to be working in emergency rooms, in addiction health, as well as anesthesia. Now, why are they focusing on these specific fields? And as I mentioned before, better pay. Mind you, the median pay for a family doctor in Ontario, according to the Government of Canada website, is $250,000. Better pay, better working conditions. They're not running a small business, and also less paperwork. And so that's why they're moving into there. That's why it's harder to find the family physician. They're not in your neighborhood. They're actually in the hospitals doing work there. Now, we spoke with one of the doctors working on this study, Dr. Tara Karan from St. Michael's Hospital, as well as U of T. Here's what she had to say.
I think it's really important to set the context here that, of course, we know that in all of Canada, more than 6.5 million people don't have a family doctor right now. And in that context, we need to be having more and more people working in the primary care space. And family doctors are the main people who are delivering primary care. And what our study found is that, we're graduating and putting out more family doctors. Even with that, we're kind of barely keeping up with our, the number that we need per capita. But what's really concerning is that more and more of them are choosing to practice in a focused area that's not full service family medicine.
Now, we also heard from the Ministry of Health, and they reiterated that by 2029, they want a family physician for every Ontarian. They also talked about some of the initiatives happening right now, including the Learn and Stay grant, basically shutting out international students getting into med schools here by 2026, allowing more Ontario residents to study to become doctors. They say that many international students study here, let's say at McMaster, and then go off to their home country and then practice there. They also talked about another grant trying to help, ironically, internationally trained doctors to try to speed up the process for them to practice here. So yes, we hear from nurses saying they need better pay, they need better working conditions, and then we're also hearing from family physicians who want the same thing to try to keep them as general family physicians and not specializing, because at the end of the day, 2.5 million Ontarians without a family doctor, so they're the ones that suffer. Back to you.
It's a lot of people without primary care physicians. Phil Perkins live in our newsroom tonight. Thank you, Phil. Over at Queen's Park, the Ford government continues to face opposition questions about a controversial bill that would fast-track mining projects.
NDP leader Marit Stiles is calling for Bill 5 to be scrapped.
Speaker, back to the Premier. You are not working in full partnership with First Nations. My goodness, if you got any message from this last couple of weeks, surely it's that, right? Even the mining sector knows that free, prior, informed consent isn't just a constitutional obligation, it is the key to the success of these projects. But this bill, it just takes us backward. And all this scrambling that we've seen over the last few days from all these ministers, boy, they're going in 1,000 directions, but they're actually not solving the fundamental problem here. Will the government do the right thing, the smart thing, withdraw this bill and go back to the drawing board?
Doing the right thing is ensuring that we lead the industrialized role when it comes to responsible resource development. Doing the right thing is challenging the status quo. And the opposition wants to make this everything but resource development. But they, too, said that they would support getting mines built faster. We have a bill before the House that respects the Constitution, strengthens compliance, but cuts down permitting timelines by 50%. And because the New Democrats and the Liberals will never get to yes on getting a resource project done, this is about the self-reliance of Canada. And if we want to win the day and build the clean energy economy the opposition members aspire for Canada, then they will work with this government, as the federal government is doing too.
Well, the government has agreed to amend Bill 5 and add provisions to consult First Nations. So the proposed legislation would allow for the creation of special economic zones in order to move along critical mining and infrastructure projects, particularly in the resource-rich Ring of Fire. So it's faced opposition from First Nations, environmentalists, and civil liberty groups.
It's 5:18, 13 degrees. You're watching Live at 5. Well,
after yesterday's historic throne speech, Mark Carney took part in his first question period as Prime Minister this afternoon. Well, first official day on the hot seat for new Prime Minister Mark Carney. He took part in his first question period, and the leader of the opposition wanted to know why the Liberals are waiting so long to present a budget.
Well, he didn't take long to pick up old Liberal habits of not being able to answer questions. But since the election, Canadians have been inundated with grand rhetoric and pretty speeches from this Liberal Party, but they are still suffering under all those policies. Household debt up at record levels, number of people who can't pay their mortgages increasing, food bank use continuing to rise. Now TD Bank is forecasting a recession with hundreds of thousands of lost jobs. The PM said undoing the damage of the last 10 years would require great speed, but he's not going to table a budget for 6 months. If he's the man with the plan and the guy you hire in a crisis, why won't he table a budget before he goes on summer vacation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the member of the opposition is very busy, didn't have a chance to study closely the 100-day plan of the former member from Ottawa, Carleton, which did not include a budget. Our plan includes legislating for one Canadian economy and nation-building projects immediately to grow this economy, and we expect the support from all in this House.
And Mayor Olivia Chow is visiting the nation's capital today.
She met with several senior officials to discuss Toronto's priorities for the next federal government. We caught up with her on our way to Parliament Hill this afternoon. Here's what she had.
Prime Minister Carney wants to build 500,000 homes, and Toronto has one of the most acute housing crises in the land. We're ready to partner, and let's get them built and get housing affordable.
Chow also attended Prime Minister Carney's first question period in the House of Commons.
Well, right now it is 5:22, 13 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The city is marking its 11th annual Newcomer Day at Nathan Phillips Square. The event aims to make the transition to living in Toronto a little easier. We're going to have more. Well, the city is marking the 11th annual Newcomer Day at Nathan Phillips Square.
Yeah, the event aims to make the transition to living in Toronto a little easier, providing information about a wide range of services available to them while celebrating the city's diversity. There are performances, food vendors, and info booths with representatives from more than 100 local organizations.
I'm from Mauritius, and I really like the diversity in terms of culture here, and that there are lots of events like today.
I like everything. It's a very beautiful city, and everybody are friendly here, and I met the good friends.
Toronto is quite busy, and the people here are very nice and lovely. yeah, as a newcomer, and I'm enjoying the place.
Very nice in Canada. I'm waiting for take coffee, free coffee, Tim Hortons.
The city says since Newcomer Day's inception, more than 65,000 people have attended. I bet you this means so much to them.
Yeah. Well, the Toronto Zoo has announced a partnership to prevent the extinction of 9 Canadian species.
The zoo and the Nuclear Waste Management Organization are putting $3 million towards saving Blanding's turtles and 8 species of bats, 7 of which are endangered in Ontario. In the 90s, the turtles were virtually extinct in the Rouge Valley, but the population has continued to grow, thanks in part to the zoo, which nurtures eggs before eventually releasing the turtles into the wild.
I think the really important thing to think about with biodiversity is that we're talking about an ecosystem. So we're focusing today on 8 bats and 1 turtle, but they're part of a much larger ecosystem. They connect to all the other plants and insects and other biodiversity that is out there. And I think of it sometimes like clockwork. So if I took a clock apart, I don't know what I'm doing. And if I start throwing cogs away, then it might work for a bit, but at some point it's going to stop working. So we're talking about species today, but we're talking also about preserving biodiversity as a whole and keeping that, which humans are a part of, and we need that as much as it needs us.
Our vision, a world where wildlife, people, and wild spaces thrive. You'll hear that a lot over the next while, because people are part of that equation. It's not us in nature. There's just a bigger us than most people are thinking about. And we're going to keep focusing on Ontario species such as Blanding's turtles, wood turtles, eastern Massasauga rattlesnakes, loggerhead shrikes, boreal caribou. We know that biodiversity is facing unprecedented threats, be it from climate change, new legislation, future pandemics. We have to take action.
And the zoo says that this latest partnership is about ensuring its vision of a world where people, wildlife, and wild spaces thrive.
It is now 5:28, 13 degrees. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
A Canada Post and the union, representing 55,000 of its workers, returned to the bargaining table today. We're back at the scene of 2 arson investigations at restaurants in Scarborough. The search continues this hour for suspects and the motive.
New research finds Ontario has more family doctors, but many are choosing not to work in primary care. This after workers held a rally to sound the alarm over the province's healthcare crisis today.
Well, getting from Toronto to Niagara in 30 minutes, we have more details on a proposed Hovercraft service that says it's possible.
And still no deal between Canada Post and its union, but the two sides are expected to return to the bargaining table. We'll get a live update in just moments.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
Now, Bakari Savage. We're going to start with this. Canada Post and the union, representing 55,000 of its workers, returned to the bargaining table today with the Crown Corporation saying that it's presented its postal workers union with its final contract offers.
Let's go live to CTV's John Musselman for the latest on where things stand. What can you tell us, John?
Well, this was a new development, a final offer from Canada Post. We had been waiting for any kind of sense of what was going on in those negotiations. They're basically offering a signing bonus, some wage increases, eliminating compulsory overtime. So what we'll have to wait and see is whether or not Cup W, which represents 55,000 workers, is ready to move on this final offer, or we'll have to see what happens next.
Okay, and with that, with what happens next, we're talking about thousands of jobs and also even more people, recipients, people who rely on the mail, left in limbo.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people caught in the middle, thousands, in fact. We did speak to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, they're very concerned about a possible work stoppage. They're telling us that 80% of small businesses are affected by a postal strike. You have to remember, not every business has options. If you're in a rural area, there's not always a convenient way to get this done without Canada Post. So they're really hoping that both sides can reach a deal. The thing is, we just don't know yet. We've reached out to Cup W to find out their response to this final offer. We just haven't heard back yet.
Okay, we wait those details. John Musselman reporting live for us. Thanks so much for this, John. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Okay, this hour, the search continues for suspects wanted in 2 arson investigations at restaurants in Scarborough.
Yeah, police believe the fires are connected. CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us live with the latest from the scene of one of the fires tonight. Steve, you're back at that scene. What more are you learning today?
Well, we know the commonalities are both are Indian restaurants, and the proximity to both are very close to the location of Lawrence and Kennedy Road. So we're at the first location, Lena. This fire, according to Toronto Police, was intentionally set on Friday morning. Police say that 3 masked suspects entered this location. They doused the inside of the restaurant with the flammable liquid, and then they set it on fire. And that caused many people inside that restaurant to flee for their safety, and thankfully none of them were physically injured. Well, less than 24 hours later, just north of where we are now, a second Indian restaurant was intentionally set on fire. Now, I covered that story Saturday afternoon, and we were able to obtain a video surveillance quite quickly on Saturday, and what that shows is 2 suspects. We're going to show you the surveillance video right now. You can see these 2 suspects smash the front window of this second location. They actually go inside for about 20 seconds. One of them has a canister in their hand, and they douse the inside of that place with another flammable liquid, and then it is set on fire. And then they flee in a vehicle that the police are looking for as well, which is a silver-colored, here's the vehicle right there, a silver-colored Honda CR-V. So multiple suspects are being looked for with regards to these 2 intentional fires. That one vehicle is certainly responsible for the getaway car for the second fire, and these are now being investigated as 2 separate arsons, of course, but they are connected, and we do not know if the same suspects are responsible for both incidents. What we do know as well is that that second location just north of where we are now, the fire that was set on Saturday, that restaurant opened just 2 weeks ago. It had been under construction for almost a year, I'm told, and then 2 weeks ago it opened for the very first time. So that may be part of the motive as well that the police will certainly look into as they try to identify who the people are that were responsible. Let's not back to you guys.
Okay, reporting live, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Steve, thank you. Well, London police have announced the largest fentanyl bust in the service's history.
Late last month, officers carried out search warrants at 6 residences in London, North York, and Hamilton. They seized nearly 5 kilos of fentanyl, valued at more than $2.7 million. They also seized nearly 5 kilos of crystal meth and 474 grams of cocaine. 4 firearms were recovered, including a semi-automatic pistol. Officers also confiscated ammunition, a silencer, and more than $200,000 in cash. 6 vehicles were seized as part of this investigation.
Well, 2 Toronto men, 44-year-old Mark Barreras and 23-year-old Sajid bin Saleh, as well as 2 men from London, have been arrested. Each suspect is facing dozens of charges, including drug trafficking and gun possession.
A teenage boy is facing charges in a violent home invasion on Hamilton Mountain, which led to an infant being bear sprayed.
Officers were called to a home for a large fight around 2 o'clock this morning at Upper Paradise and Stone Church Road. The police say the accused entered the home with another suspect, discharged bear spray, and then pulled out a knife. A 9-month-old baby was impacted by the spray. The 15-year-old boy was eventually forced outside and held until officers can make an arrest. He's facing 21 charges, including 4 counts of assault with a weapon and 7 counts of failing to comply with the youth sentence. And police are still working to identify the second suspect.
A Toronto mother who traveled to northern India earlier this year in search of her abducted son is finally bringing him home.
Yeah, 4-year-old Valentino has been away from his mother since July. That's when Camila Villas-Boas' ex-husband went to Delhi, India, with the boy and never returned. Boas went to India in search of her son. This was back in January. Hired lawyers there and then took her former spouse to court for illegal child detention. Well, 48-year-old Kapil Sunak will not be charged in India for allegedly withholding their son. But Toronto police tell CP24 he is still wanted for parental abduction charges here.
Well, one concert goer in Toronto was left injured after her hair caught fire at Monday's Post Malone and Jelly Roll concert.
Well, Bree Flynn attended the concert with her sister, standing near the stage at Rogers Centre, when a spark from the fireworks show landed on her head. Flynn says she left the concert floor and was able to receive first aid on site. She says that she does not expect to take legal action, but hopes that the tour organizers can make changes to help keep fans safe during concerts.
Yikes. All right, well, another significant step for the construction of the Ontario line.
Excavation work began today on Queen Station at Yonge and Queen, which will eventually connect with Line 1 of the subway. The crews will remove more than 100,000 cubic meters of dirt and rock. The station platform is going to be built 40 meters below street level, directly beneath the existing subway station. It'll be the busiest stop on the Ontario line, serving over 15,000 riders during peak hours.
5:38, 13 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, coming up, Ontario healthcare workers rallied in Toronto today to highlight what they say is a recruitment and retention crisis in the sector. Okay, the number of family doctors working in Ontario, it's up, but they may be harder to find because of the type of medicine that they're practicing.
Yeah, let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins for a closer look at the findings of a new study. And it's hard to be a primary care physician in Ontario these days, Phil.
Yeah, it is. Growing up, you would think being a family doctor is a pretty safe bet to have a pretty good life. But at the end of the day, 2.5 million Ontarians do not have family doctors. And you would think, according to the Government of Canada's website, the median salary of a family doctor is $250,000, that more people would want to be family doctors. And that is happening, according to a family medicine journal. The amount of family doctors that are graduating is up. However, the amount doing comprehensive medicine, meaning generalized medicine from babies to senior citizens and all types of illnesses and issues, that's actually gone down. Out of the 6,310 new general practitioners, family medicine doctors over the last 30 years, 40% are actually in focused practices. So they're in emergency rooms, they're in hospitals doing other work, addiction specialists as well, also anesthesia. Why are they focusing on these fields of work? Because there's better pay than that median of $250,000, better working conditions, not as much paperwork. They're not running their own small business. And of course, if you are a doctor owning your own business and a family practice, you don't have a pension. A lot of that is relied on you and your business savvy. So we spoke with Dr. Tara Karan, who works at St. Michael's Hospital and at the University of Toronto, and she worked on this study and she weighed in on what they're calling this concerning trend.
What's really concerning is that more and more of them are choosing to practice in a focused area that's not full service family medicine. And so what this means is that, when we're training more family doctors, it's not enough to just train more family doctors. We have to support them and ensure the systems and incentives are in place so that they preferentially choose family medicine in the community, which is what people most really need right now.
And we heard from the Ministry of Health as well, and they have said multiple times that by 2029 they want a family physician for every Ontarian. They say they're doing what they can to increase the amount of family physicians. Several different projects, including the Learn and Stay grant. And by 2026, they're going to shut out international medical school students. They want to increase the amount of residents becoming medical school students, and also they want to quicken the pace of internationally trained doctors and bring them here and get them practicing and helping those 2.5 million Canadians as family doctors as quickly as possible. Back to you guys.
Okay, joining us live from the newsroom, CP24's Phil Perkins. Phil, thank you. Ontario healthcare workers, they rallied in Toronto today to highlight what they say is a recruitment and retention crisis in the sector.
The demonstration downtown comes as the Ontario Public Service Employees Union is holding contract talks with the Ontario Hospital Association. The union says hospitals across the province are grappling with shortages in hundreds of job classifications. It's calling for solutions to avoid what it says are dangerous levels of understaffing.
We now have 9-month wait lists for people to get diagnosed for cancers because there's a shortage of medical laboratory technologists and there's a shortage of medical radiation technologists, the people that provide the diagnostics, and pathology assistants and everybody else that does that. So this isn't going to be solved by privatizing healthcare, expanding services in private clinics, because you're still drawing from the same limited pool of health professionals. And if the private clinics are expanded, they just pull the resources from our public hospitals.
Well, the Office of Ontario's Health Minister is responding to the rally. A statement from a spokesperson says in part, quote, with our government's record investments to create new nursing programs, expand scopes of practice, stand up new primary care teams, and break down barriers for internationally educated nurses, we know medical professionals want to work and practice in Ontario. Well, in addition to more funding, the union also wants the OHA to take steps to end what it's calling increasing reliance on private agencies for staffing.
Well, a company behind a proposal for a hovercraft service between Toronto and Niagara is touting the benefits it could provide, including alleviating traffic congestion on the QEW. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, CP24, Sija Liu joins us live with more on this. So, Sija, it seems like there's still a couple really big questions that we don't know the answers to.
Yeah, for example, when is this service actually going to become a reality? How much it's going to cost people? Those are all questions they're still trying to figure out. But Hoverlink, the company behind this proposed hovercraft service, says this could be a new era of rapid transportation. Instead of driving around the QEW to get to the Niagara region, you can take a shortcut across Lake Ontario. It promises to get you there in just 30 minutes. So last month, a big development happened. The company signed a 30-year deal with Port Ontario to build a dock here at Billy Bishop Airport. They'll also be building a dock at Port Weller in St. Catharines. And this hovercraft can carry 180 passengers. They can take 48 trips daily and can operate year-round, 365 days a year. They say this will also help people not taking the hovercraft because it will reduce congestion on the roads. The company claims it can take around 8,000 cars off the road each day. And they're also going to have shuttle buses that connect people from the Hoverlink location to popular destinations, tourist destinations in Niagara Falls. There's still a lot of questions such as how much is a ticket going to be? The company says they are still working that out, but hopes it will be comparable to existing ground public transportation options that already exist. We've been hanging out here by Billy Bishop Airport asking people what they think about the service and how much they would pay for something like this. Take a listen.
It depends on the cost. I think there's already a GO train line already. So it depends on it depends on the cost. But yeah, if it's something that's economical, yeah, I would definitely use it.
Last time I went to Niagara Falls earlier this year, took me like about an hour, 10 minutes. But I don't go too often, so I can't really comment on this. But yeah, for sure, traffic is a big concern.
Hopefully it works well, and weather-wise, it's unaffected, and hopefully it just runs smoother. I think if anything, if it's faster, then people are going to be using it.
And some of the people we've been asking say they would pay anywhere from $20 to $60 for a service like this, but that is still to be determined. But another benefit is tourism. The company says this would make a day trip to Niagara Falls very accessible. For example, right now to get to the Niagara region with traffic, it takes around 2.5 hours. And Lena Bakari, they're saying with this new service, that could be just 30 minutes. Back to you.
Okay, reporting live from the waterfront, CP24, Sija Liu. Sija, thanks a lot. It's 5:48, 13 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, Canadian healthcare workers are speaking out about the situation on the ground in Gaza. We're going to hear from them next.
Canadian healthcare workers who volunteered in Gaza held a news conference in Ottawa today, speaking about their experiences working there.
I returned from Gaza on April the 17th. After spending 7 weeks working there, it was my 5th time working in Gaza. Although I arrived during the ceasefire, I saw freshly wounded patients every day injuries consistent with weaponized drones and powerful explosions. When the ceasefire was broken on March 18th, my first patient was a young man, 19 years old, his leg torn from his body at the level of his hip. It is one of the worst limb injuries I have seen in my entire career, but yet I saw 2 more patients with almost identical injuries in the 4 weeks that followed, and so many more injuries that were just as devastating.
I worked at the European Gaza hospital from late January until February 27th of this year. I saw many things that go against our Canadian values. I saw a young boy, Yusuf, who loved, in this picture here, who loved to play soccer and could sing beautifully, who loved his mother more than anyone else in the world. He was a small boy, even smaller than his age would have predicted. He was a primary school aged child who was shot by a sniper during the ceasefire and had a painful journey in our hospital. He was no fighter. On top of the trauma, on top of that, now he has to deal with starvation, and now he is at risk for dying from starvation.
Absolute chaos in Gaza as people desperate for aid scramble to get their hands on anything that they can. The crowds of Palestinians broke through a distribution site, kicking off the free-for-all. At least one person was shot and killed, 48 others injured in the panic. Israel has denied it was behind the shooting. The Palestinians have been forced to the brink of starvation after Israel had, up until recently, closed access to Gaza for 3 months.
It is now 5:53, 13 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, a teenager from Burlington has made it to the 3rd round of the French Open. More on Victoria and Boca next.
Well, she has literally left her opponents in the dust. Burlington team Victoria Mboko is more than making a name for herself in Paris.
And with more on this thrilling performance, we bring in Carl Hell, tournament director for the National Bank Open, joining us live. Carl, thanks a lot for taking time to speak with us. And Mboko isn't just winning. She's doing so in back-to-back matches and with a straight set win and on track to rise to the top 100 of WTA rankings for the first time. Your reaction and, just this performance.
Yeah, the typical story, overnight sensation that started 10 years ago. We've watched her develop here at Tennis Canada. She signed with IMG when she's 12 years old. The last few years, she's been through some adversity, which I think is great for these players. That she came back to Tennis Canada development, the end of this last year. She's had a phenomenal year. I think her record is something like 45-3. She won 5 tournaments. She played Paula Badosa in Miami, a really tight match, who's a top 10 player. And now she's just off to the races. She hasn't lost a set in this tournament, and she's one of 3 teenagers in the top 100. Just spectacular for Canadian tennis.
And you talked about some of her story. It really is remarkable. Her family moved from the Democratic Republic of Congo, running away from the wars of the mid-90s. I can only imagine how proud they are of her now. What more can you tell us about her story and your connection to it?
Well, it's, I've known the family for a long time. It's a typical Canadian story of immigration. Her father worked night shifts so he could take her to practice and watch her practice to help her tennis. Her family's totally committed to her development since she was a young child. And we're just so happy to see the success because, outside of being an incredible player with a hugely bright future, we expect her to be top 10 in the world in not too long. She's just a great person and a great family.
Okay, so as the French Open continues, Mboko is the last Canadian woman in singles. What do you expect from the rest of her performance during this tournament?
Well, listen, she played Badosa, who's a top 10 player, lost 7-6 in the third. And what that basically says is she's playing at that level. She's an incredible ball striker, an incredible mover. She can stay with anybody in the game. Zhang is the reigning Olympic champion, top 10 player, incredible WTA player. And I think she can beat her. This story has the hallmarks of her becoming a champion. You just never know. She's that good, and it is possible. But one match at a time, and we'll cheer her on tomorrow.
Very, very quickly, I've got about 30 seconds left here. What do you think this means for little boys and girls?
It's amazing for Canadian tennis. Like the National Bank Open is so important to these players. This is where they get wild cards, so they can get exposure to the top players in the world. And this is what helped all our players. And let's mention Gabriel Diallo, another young up and coming player who's playing tomorrow. He's into the second round, top 50 in the world. So Canadian tennis has a new wave of players following Dennis, Bianca, and Layla. So it's just really exciting. Don't forget to come to the National Bank Open this summer, July 26th, August 7th, and watch all of these great players.
Carl Hale, a tournament director for the National Bank Open. Thanks so much for this. Appreciate your time. It's now 5:59, 13 degrees. You're watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.